So we will dive direct to our question, and now we will be discussing child support. We cannot assume this is something that now, it's really going on. It's not like Kitambo where people will, hide. Child support has become a concern and also child's right, I believe. And so, on to our first question, we will ask, how is child support calculated from a legal perspective, and what factors influence the final amount?
Right. Thank you for that question. I first want to say that child support only comes in after divorce or separation. You can't be legally married and living in the same house and asking for child support. That's one of the questions I find people asking. People do not want to divorce, especially women. They don't want to divorce. They are unhappy in the marriage. But they want this man. This man is not taking care of the kids, but they want him to start taking care of the kids. And they think going to court for child support is what will work, especially when they're still together. That child support and maintenance comes into play after divorce or separation. So there's a joint duty for both parents to maintain children. The duty is not only for men, as is the common perception. The duty is joint between husband and wife, for man and woman, right? So the kids are not just for a man or just a woman to maintain and take care of. So the court will consider several factors. So actually the court has the authority, first of all, or the discretion to give maintenance orders. So the court, number one, will consider the child's best interests. It's a core principle of anything to do with children to look at the child's best interests. So that's the first thing that the court will consider. Right? The second one is the one I talked about the standard of living of the children. So the court will consider that. The court will also consider the income of both parents. So the court won't just look at what the man earns. It will also want to know what does the woman also and what is the income of the woman as well. Yeah, so those are the three ones that come to mind. The three factors that will go into play when the court is deciding.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we were talking about marriage, divorce and separation, you told us that cohabitation, regardless of the time, is not the court does not consider it as a marriage. And so, what if now people who are cohabitating at some point they get now, let's just say they separate and their kids involved? Does the court still stand for those kids, and are there measures that are taken just to ensure the well-being of these children?
Yes, there are. Marriage, children, property, those are three different things. Put them in three different boxes. It doesn't matter whether mother and father are married, man and woman are married. The child needs to eat, regardless of whether there's a marriage certificate, whether it's monogamous, whether it's cohabiting, whether it's legal. The child must eat. The child has a right to education, right? The child has a right to just be in an environment that's child-friendly. That's something else that's overlooked. So those two have no correlation. The court will look at the child's best interest. In fact, when we are filing for maintenance orders, a marriage certificate is neither here nor there, but a birth certificate is a very important document.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. In what situations can child support be reviewed or modified?
So firstly, the court can review any interim orders that there are. So if a court has given orders, it can review its own orders, right? The court will also consider a change in circumstances. So for example, a change in income. I was working as a managing director of a big company, and now because of circumstances that are here or there, I have, for example, retired, or I have been summarily dismissed, so I'm no longer working at the same place. So the court can look at the changing circumstances. The court always will look at the child's best interests. Yeah, at all times, the court will consider that. Yeah, so those are the three factors.
Okay. Having listened, to what you have said and what I've picked is the income that both parents, get is really a factor when it comes to child support. So, what in a scenario, uh, one of the parents or maybe both are not like in a salary setup, maybe it's a business setup. How will the court measure the income of the parents so that they can be able to determine now you will bring like this much or this is the extent you support the babies or the other one is up to this extent maybe.
So the court will consider the circumstances or the standard of living of the children before the divorce happened. Right? Before the divorce happened, the children were going to school, right? Right. What school were they in? Who was paying school fees? That continues. Right. Before the divorce happened, these children were eating. Who was providing food? That continues. Right? It doesn't mean that just because you divorced, now you've stopped having the capability to provide for these kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So the court will look at the circumstances before, right? And then the court will then balance. It won't say that, for example, even if the husband was doing everything for the child, so he was doing school fees, clothing, rent, everything, the court will then balance out these responsibilities. So as a woman, you have to be ready and willing to take up some responsibilities of your own. In fact, what we advise our clients at our firm is to pick up some responsibilities that they are willing to take up. At the end of the day, the children are yours. If you decide you won't take care of your children, for example, you yourself are the one who is subjecting the child to a low standard of living. Right? If you decide that you just hit this responsibility to one person and not contribute to the standard of living, then you yourself are responsible for that. So we really advise parties to be pragmatic about the situations and to just take up some responsibilities. There's a lot of things that you can take. You don't have to take the big stuff, the school fees and so on. If as a lady you feel like you're not very well armed, you could take even something as small as just paying the nanny. You could even take food. You could even take clothing, honestly. Because clothing is not a daily or monthly need. Say it's a quarterly kind of need. Yeah. So you can't just completely sit back and say that I will take no responsibility. This guy will do everything down to buying the handkerchief of the child. It's not something we advise. And we really talk to our clients out of seeing things from an emotional perspective and be a bit logical about things.
For those who are or rather have read on social media or on newspaper articles, there are people who are employed and they happen now to do the divorce or the separation. And of course, there's the issue of now sharing the responsibilities. I find it easy when somebody is employed because that money can be redirected to the whoever, one of the parents. But I don't know what happens now from a legal perspective when maybe one of the parents is a business person. You see, when you're employed, it can be done from maybe the HR's office through a court order or something.
Yes.
What happens to a business person? How do you measure now? This is the much you will bring, and
you see, from the court's perspective or from a legal point of view, it doesn't need to be logical. That, for example, I get what you're trying to ask. Like I said, this child needs to eat, regardless of what is happening. Regardless of whether you've had a bad day or a bad month in business, the child needs to eat. In fact, I once sat in a court session where the magistrate basically said, "Did you have breakfast this morning?" "Yes, I did." "So why are your children not eating?" It's that straightforward in my mind. So the court won't go down to, "Oh, you're a business person, how much do you make in a month?" Because obviously that opens a lot of loopholes. We could basically forge or cook documents and cookbooks of account and provide them to court to show that, our business is not doing well. But you will eat at the end of the day. So why is your child not eating?
Yeah, your needs will be attended to regardless.
Yes, regardless. You will not sleep on the street. So why are you not bothered about where your child will sleep?
So you're just being selfish.
Yes. So the court will sit and give parties an opportunity to take up the roles they are comfortable doing. If not, then the court will look at precedents. How have past cases been dealt with similar to those ones? right? And then the court will just apportion responsibilities. You refuse to take up responsibilities, the court will say, as a man, you're going to do shelter, you're going to do shopping or food, and then you're going to do school fees and school related expenses. As a woman, you're going to do, for example, clothing, you're going to pay the nanny, you're going to do medical insurance, of which you could still do share, right? And then as a woman, you will also do entertainment. That's how the court, in most cases that we have handled, apportions those responsibilities. Yeah.
No, I hope our viewers you're really learning, because some of these things we talk, we give all our opinions coming from a point of not knowing, but now we have an expert who's really trying to unpack this with us. So, what should parents know about enforcing child support when the paying parent is uncooperative?
Okay, that's a good question. We've said that it's a joint duty for both parents to take care of the kids. So paying parent there is a bit of a misconception. There's no paying parent. Both parents are supposed to be paying parents.
Yeah.
Okay. So enforcement, the easiest way to enforce is through court, right? And the Children's Act gives the court the authority to enforce any maintenance orders. You find that the court makes an order and says, just the way I've set them out, you're paying school fees, you're paying rent, you're paying what. You find that, for example, somebody decides they won't pay school fees. Easiest way is to go through court. In fact, if you can have an order that says that this matter can be enforced in this and this way, if there's a default, this can be enforced in such a way, the better. Rather than just having an order that says, father, you'll pay rent and school fees, mother, you'll pay medical and food. Have a second order that says that if this order is not complied with, these are the repercussions. Yeah, that's the easiest way to enforce such court orders.
Okay. Yeah. How does the court determine who to grant the child's custody?
Court looks at several factors. Biggest one, the core principle for anything to do with children, child-based interests. A child is under one, say a child is 6 months. Granting that child to the father does not make logical sense, because the child is still, for example, exclusively breastfeeding. A girl, for example, a 2-year-old girl, will in most cases not be granted to the father unless there are compelling reasons. Unless there are compelling reasons why the child should go with the father. The court will consider the religion of the child. The court will consider the standard of living, to consider the environment of the child. The court, in some instances, will even have somebody we call a probation officer or a children officer go to the house where the mother lives and where the father lives and assess the both environment and then give a report on what environment best suits the child. So the courts have become very, very practical, especially to do with children matters, and that's very commendable. Those are the factors that the court will consider. The court will consider the conduct of the parties, for example, during the matter. The court will also sometimes even consider the views of the child. You'll find that children sometimes will give their witness statement on both environments and both homes. Yeah.
Okay. When you say child support, does it really limit us to monetary support only? Because I'm thinking the child needs like emotional support, the child needs spiritual support, because they need guidance, they're still young to make their decisions. But in many cases, we emphasize more on the monetary support. What is the legal perspective in matters to other supports, not only limited to the financial?
The court can only do so much, unfortunately. The court can't come down and tell you need to now guide your child because the world is a tricky place to be in. You need to speak to your child about adolescence, for example. You need to speak to your daughters about adolescence. The court can't come down and micromanage to that level. It still rests with you. These are your children. It still rests with you as a person in your personal capacity to guide your children. Okay. So the court will not, go down to that level of, emotional needs of a child and so on and so forth. I think that if you were to look at it from the eyes of the law expects that when it grants you custody, for example, somehow you will guide your children towards the right way to live, right? Somehow you will provide the emotional needs. If a child, for example, has food, has shelter, has school fees, they will somehow get all these other emotional needs. But the court can only do so much. They cannot micromanage.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe in a scenario where, like, a father, I believe there are cases where even underage, in this case 18 and below, may end up with the father. And maybe in a scenario where those children end up with either parents, because it could be also the mother, and after the custody, maybe the child's well-being, especially mentally, they progress even in terms of academics and all that, depression, and maybe it's brought up. So I'm trying to think, can the custody be reviewed from there?
Yes.
Because maybe I actually remember there's a time there was a case that was aired on TV. Kids were given to their father.
Was that in Thika Locals? Yeah.
I can't even remember where it was.
It was in Thika.
And it was really emotional.
Yeah, and they really cried and refused to.
I think they had been given the mother.
They had been given to the mother.
And now they don't want to give the mother
to the
dad.
Yes.
That already tells you something. As you're saying, sometimes the kids can come in as witnesses.
Yes.
So can that make the first custody be revoked? And maybe now these other parents where even the children feel safe, maybe given the child custody, or how does it go?
Yes, the answer is yes. That's a very good case for review of custody orders. But the way the justice system is set up here, unlike in the US, the court does not move of its own motion. That's a very legal thing to say. The court does not move itself. You have to move the court as parties. So the court can't sit and say, oh, I'm changing my mind because I can see those kids are really crying. You have to move the court yourselves, right? You have to go to court. For example, as the father, you could appeal, you could apply for something we call a review. The difference is that an appeal goes to a higher court. A review, it's the same court looking at now these new circumstances. They say, oh, okay, fine. In view of these new circumstances, then I'm changing what I have said before, or I am reviewing my orders in legal terms. Okay. So yes, to that extent, that's a very good case for review of orders.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've come to an end of the
child
custody. No, not the session.
Okay.
But the child custody.
Right.
But in case you will have anything you would want to add, matters children, because this is really happening nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know, we no longer want marriages anymore. And we cannot undo the fact that children are involved.
Yeah.
And it's happening in almost every homestead.
Yeah.
Because also the cases of single parents, either father or mother, are very high.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you would tell our viewers in regards to this from maybe a legal, actually it's not from maybe, it's purely from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
So that even as we make decisions, we don't make them blindly.
Yes. Let me say this. I emphasize on mediation for very many reasons. The internet does not forget. I talked about something called precedents. You find Mary and John are fighting. They have kids. They have 3 kids who are young. Mary, for example, goes to court. They file the case. There's a lot of messiness. There's a lot of, you have to have reasons for divorce in Kenya. You can't just divorce just because. You have to have reasons for divorce. So Mary decides to air everything. In the whiff of the moment, she's mad and decides to air everything. These kids grow up. The child is 2 now. They won't be 2 forever. And one day be 20. Probably wants to become a lawyer. So she's also a lawyer now. And she's reading through case law and she's seeing her parents. And she's seeing
as a case study.
As a case study, in fact. And she's saying, daddy, alikuwa aje? Kwani mami surely.
The embarrassment.
And maybe even Mary made up this story. And even give more juice to the story. Mediate. Mediate. It might look like it's heavy right now. It might look like you're trying to settle scores right now. Mediate that matter. Try to, try to be level-headed. Mediate whatever can be mediated. We really don't need to know your.
To hear the dirty linen.
We really need not, and not even us. We'll be there for the tea.
Yeah.
But to your kids, it won't be tea. It will be trauma that they will need to heal from. Right? So don't give your kids something they need to heal from. Yet the buck can stop with you. So please mediate. Please mediate. Give things time to simmer and settle. Then mediate. Don't rush to, divorce. Don't rush to. I see there's a lot of domestic abuse and violence, and there's a lot of those things happening now. It's very unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's the kids that suffer.
Yeah.
You won't be angry forever. You'll be angry and give it a year to be angry. But your kids will need time to heal.
Yeah.
Even from the separation, even from the divorce, from living in different households, from being taken to court, to be asked, who do you like, mommy or daddy? And the lawyer is there, they're trying to win and get their money and go home. So they'll be really hard on your child as a witness, right? They'll try.
We have a viewer who's asking, what is this mediation?
Right. So mediation is a process of settling disputes or a process of settling disagreements between disputants, we call them disputants, or parties who are in a dispute. And what mediation does is that it's a private session. So anything said in a mediation, by the way, cannot be taken to court. So we can't come and talk in a mediation setup before a mediator and then you use that as evidence in court. Okay? So it's a private, party-led dispute resolution method. Party-led means that the parties themselves are the ones who brainstorm and come up with a solution. I don't sit there as a mediator to judge and say you're right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No. I give you an opportunity to speak to each other. What happens is when people are disputing, they get to a point where they're not even talking to each other. Okay? And in that not talking to each other, what that does is that it prevents you the opportunity to come up with a solution. So it helps you to brainstorm if you're in a mediation kind of setup. So as a mediator, my work is to facilitate conversation that is healthy, because you find people also who are disputing want to throw jabs at each other. And what I do is to then give you legal guidance. For example, if you're about to get into an illegal arrangement, then I tell you that's not legal, that can't be done. Okay? So that's what mediation is. And what we can do is you go a step further. After you have agreed in a mediation, then this can then be adopted as a court order without the whole details being given. So we just go to court, ask the court to adopt this mediation settlement agreement as an order of the court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that clarification. So now we go to the next subtopic, which is property acquired before and after marriage. I know it's something we had touched, but we can touch it in depth. Maybe we go to our first question, and our first question was like, what happens to assets like businesses, land, or investment that one partner owned before marriage?
So property that you own before marriage still remains as your property. Unless, for example, you want to convert it to matrimonial property. In this way, a man or a woman has land before marriage, and then after that, once they get married, they build a house on that land, right? And this is where the kids are brought up, this is where the family is. So that then becomes matrimonial property.
It seems to be one party's property.
Yes, it now becomes matrimonial property.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Because you can tell this other party to go at the house and go.
You don't know a thing. And you also can't tell the kids to get out of your house and go. Child's best interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are shared properties and marital assets divided during divorce, and what makes the process fair or unfair?
Fair or unfair is in accordance. Well, it depends on the reading on your reading of the law. What is fair, what is unfair?
Yeah.
Because if you get into a situation where you put yourself up, you set yourself up for unfairness.
Yeah.
That's not the law. That's you setting yourself up for unfairness.
Mm-hmm.
That's you doing things without seeking proper knowledge. For example, I had a case the other day where a lady got property and then put it in a man's name. I've also had a previous case where a lady takes a loan for the man's benefit solely. And then they divorce, and now she's trying to tell the court that no, this loan was for this guy's benefit, so I want him to start paying. See, you set yourself up for unfairness.
And what happens in such a scenario anyway?
Depends. Your evidence. It's a court of law, it's a court of evidence. What is the evidence there?
That you're giving money.
Yes, what's the evidence?
If you did like send via M-Pesa, it was like cash. Even if
you sent it via M-Pesa, how do we prove that this money is from that loan and that he needs?
You support it maybe with a conversation, right?
Yes, but why set yourself up for for unfairness,
ladies? But I'm thinking in a family setup, maybe as you're saying, we were in a marriage, and maybe, for example, one of the spouses' businesses goes down, and one feels, I need to support, and then maybe before they even pay that loan, they separate or they divorce. Okay, and this other person, the one who was given the money, for instance, is not even willing to make payments, whether in full or in partial, towards that loan that purely was for his interest or her interest. What do you think, or what would you say in such a scenario? And especially where maybe you're also not able to prove you gave that money in terms of like an M-Pesa or a bank transfer. Maybe you even gave it in cash, because you see you are under the same roof, and you are really not foreseeing a divorce or a separation in it. And as I said, I know mostly it's women, so I'm asking for my viewers. Mostly it's women, because as you said, you are beings of emotions. Yeah. How does the court handle such a scenario?
That makes sense, because nobody foresees a divorce at the point of the wedding or the marriage, when it's rosy and everything. But a court is a court of evidence, very heavily evidence based. So it's best to have a paper trail from the get go, even when you don't foresee a divorce, even when you don't foresee things going haywire. Okay, it's best to have a paper trail. It's also best to have your spouse as a guarantor to the loan. Okay, although a guarantor then is a second point of reach after you have already been
defaulted.
Yeah, you have defaulted, and they found out that you don't have anything they can collect from you. Then they go to the guarantor. But it's best to have a guarantor. These days the court is even taking into account digital evidence. Messages saying, "I gave you money, yes, I'm going to repay," and so on and so forth. If there's evidence, for example, that say you took a loan from KCB Bank and the monthly payment is X amount, and you have a statement that shows the person who pays is the other spouse who you took the money for, that would also make for evidence. So if you can prove it in writing, then that's something the court can consider.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Before we go to our last question, which is a fun question for you, there's something that is happening or it's going on, and people in social media have different, thoughts and opinions and everything, and it's in regards to, one of our musicians, celebrity, who happened to pass on. Pass on, I think, earlier this week, or is it last week? I can't even remember. And she was into her second marriage after, leaving the first marriage. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I tend to think so many people, are in this kind of arrangements,
Mm.
because you cannot ignore the fact that marriage and separation, I mean, divorce and separation has become really high. So, and she was now staying with this other husband. She was in her second marriage, but they were cooperating with the father of the children.
Mhm.
And, as usual, social media in-laws are very quick to start making judgments and all this and bringing up issues.
Mm.
And there's already an issue that is going on about the kids. This lady did not have, I think she doesn't have a kid in this other marriage she's in, but she had kids in her previous marriages, where we are saying they were co-parenting. Now that the mother is not there, what happens to these kids? Who has custody for these children?
Mm.
Are the two? I heard there's a dad and there's a father. The dad is the one, their current father, the one that married the mom. Can they co-parent these children, or what happens from a
So
legal
dad and father
perspective?
co-parent.
What happens from
That's
a
interesting.
legal perspective?
I think that's a situation that they call a blended family.
Yes.
Right. So, issue of custody. Somebody would need to move the court. Right. Somebody will need to apply for legal custody. And the court will consider the best interest of the kids. If the kids are old enough, people who can, like kids who can, for example, express themselves, speak, and perhaps they already have, they can express themselves, so to speak.
Mhm.
The court may want to hear from them what their ideal situation would look like.
Mhm.
Again, the court will look at the standard of living, very important. To look at the environment, for example, and so on and so forth. I don't foresee the court leaving these kids with this. You called him the dad or the father? The dad.
The current husband, the mom.
Yes, is the dad.
Mm.
Yes, I don't foresee the court leaving the kids with the current dad.
Mhm.
A father and a mother to a child are equal. We started by saying that, right?
Yes.
So there's no way the court will take away the kids from a biological father and give them to the dad, as you call him, right? Because before we get there, there's even the mother of the lady who died. Yeah, and so on and so forth. So the court should consider the situation, the living situation, and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe in a scenario where such a situation happens,
Mhm.
what can you tell parents? Because you see, death is inevitable.
Mm.
And you can go either with maybe it's the father or it's the mother who was married to whoever,
Yeah.
and then they happen to pass on, and all these kids are here.
Mm.
What can you advise our viewers in regards to that?
There's so many ways to go around taking care of your kids even after you're gone. You could do that in form of a will. You could do that in form of creating a trust, right? This that. Like, so in a will, you could write down that should I pass before my kids are 18 years old, this is the person who will be the guardian of the kids, right?
Okay.
In a trust is where you transfer property to a corporate body called a trust. And the trust is for the benefit of the kids.
Yes.
So anything that is put in a trust does not go through succession and probate processes in court. So that's the second way to ensure that your children are taken care of after you go over here. Yeah. But the third way, obviously, is to clean up house when you can. Right? Have a very well organized way of living, such that if, for example, in the situation that you've given us, you have dad who is married to mom, and then you have a father. You need to have something called a parental responsibility agreement that sets out the role of the father, the role of dad, and even goes on to say that if one of them is not there, this is the person that will take over.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
Mm.
Maybe the last one on children.
Yes.
I have seen ladies on social media after separation, and I want to see ladies particularly because the birth certificate is for the mom and the father. But ladies are very, they go hard even after separation. I don't know whether it's because of, just to avoid back and forth of courts, to just want to change the birth certificate certificate of the children, maybe remove the father, and even maybe remove, change the kids' names. Especially, traditionally, where you get children, you tend to name them the side of the
Father
father.
first, yeah.
Father, exactly. So I have seen where maybe I want to change that, and they're all over social media asking who can help me, change my kid's name and maybe erase the dad. What is the legal perception of this? And does it have any harm?
Of course, it has a big harm. First of all, even before we go to the legal perspective, you cannot erase a child's father. Yeah. Even if he removes himself from the children's lives, you cannot erase his contribution towards the child being there. So that's social perspective. But from a legal standpoint, the court and the law has now evolved, and you can't now erase a father's name. You can't change somebody. You can't legally. Let me say that you can't legally change a child's name and say, for example, my name is not Miriam Kemani, I'm Miriam Full Stop, and erase the Kemani from my name. You can't. You also similarly cannot erase my birth certificate and remove Robert Kimani as my father and leave it blank. Or I've seen before that people used to put X, right? Or people used to put their own biological dads there. That's very tricky. That's just risky, honestly, and that's very misinformed. So you can't legally do that. You see, at the end of the day, you could have a document that says, there's no father, and I'm not Miriam Kimani, I'm just Miriam full stop. But the records at the birth and registry and death registry read that Robert Kimani is still my father. Right? So you can't erase that legally. There are people who claim to be able to do it and then bring your birth certificate. And I've seen people being conned in that way. And then the day you want to now travel elsewhere with your kids and you're applying for a visa, it becomes difficult. In fact, you look like a fraud because you have a document that says there's no father, but our records at the birth and death registry read that there is a father to this child. This is the name of the father. Why are you traveling outside the country? Why are you attempting to travel outside the country without the father's knowledge? What are you going to do with this child? There has been such a rise of child trafficking cases, child abuse cases, and that's the genesis of it. That's a big genesis of them, if I may put it that way. People travel out with their kids. And, it's looking like just a normal holiday, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right? So the law now changed, and you can't erase that name. And I think it's something people do out of emotion. Yeah.
I think I had seen the mask in the last one, but not the very last one.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned if a parent wants to travel outside, you go to the embassies, and they have these legal documents, because I believe a birth certificate is a legal documents. And then you are going there and producing another counterfeit documents. Now, for parents who have separated or divorced and they are not in agreement, and one of them wants to maybe travel with the children, maybe you could advise us what steps can these parents take? Because sometimes divorce, it also involves blackmailing each other emotions. There's a father who knows very well the child is going for better pastures, but I'm not allowing just because I want to have the mother, or the mother doing the same to the father. So what would you say in relation to that?
Again, mediation. The second parent's consent is very critical to being allowed to travel, or to even just get the visa to travel outside the country with these children. It's very critical. It's not the beginning and the end of it, but it's very critical. It's actually the easiest way out to just get their consent directly. If not, then you could go through court. Go through court, apply evidence based again. Have evidence that this parent or the second parent is just denying the consent for no reason, right? And if you can convince the court, then that's good. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, we are very grateful for sharing this, awesome nuggets with us, because I believe family law is underrated until you need to confront something. So as we wind up, we just have one fun question for you. What is the most surprising or funny thing someone has ever asked you during a family law consultation?
Um, Funny, you said.
Yes.
I don't think people come to offices for funny reasons. We have to have that fear for that. I think what I would term as funny is a client who wanted a divorce, a man wanted a divorce from his wife. They had agreed to separate. Right, this is not working, let's separate.
Yeah.
But he was feeling aggrieved that he had paid so much down for this lady.
Okay.
And so he wanted us to go to court and ask the court to, give back his dowry. And his dowry was in form of cattle. And it had been 10 years. So
10 years back.
yes, it had been 10 years.
Wow.
So he wanted his cattle back. He was not happy. We found that funny. We really found that funny. You have to find humor in our profession somehow.
But really, should the dowry be reversed after divorce and separation? Now that you've mentioned that.
Dowry is a very cultural thing. Right? It's not legal, it's very cultural. And so because it's cultural, then that question is good based on the culture under which people are married. So if you're married under Kikuyu culture, that's different from if you're married under Luo, under Mijikenda. It's all different. So this is a cultural thing, so we can't put a legal backing to it.
Yeah.
There's a recent judgment where the court closes by saying, so this guy wanted his dowry back as well. The court closed by saying that, it's for you as the lady's family to just do what is right. Why would you still be holding on to dowry? For some, and that's the problem with dowry. It has now started to become very economic. And if you proceed that way, then you're going to lose the gist of it. Yeah.
I saw, a recent, social media still. I think people are not just able to keep their stuff. And there's this wakili who went to ask for his dowry back after they divorced. And he went with all cameras, like he's going to give the dowry. And now this time he's going to give the dowry. To me, it looked like an embarrassment. But when I go through, the situation, I felt like I will tell Mr. Onena that if time ever comes, I need to be handed to this guy. Can you forgo the dowry? Because really, I don't want to look like a property to somebody.
Yeah.
And maybe even what you're taking to my father, it's not even something. No, but the embarrassment and all these things that the ties. I mean, in terms of fights, you can't even leave each other respectively just because of money things. To me, it didn't really look nice, and especially now that lady, she's also a public figure, doing very well.
Yeah.
This is also our Wakili who's also claiming to have moved on. You're wondering what's all this drama about. You're even traumatizing the old parents. It doesn't have to end up that way. You can just leave each other nicely, wishing you all the best. If it's your wedding, even invite me. It doesn't have to be a bitter pill. It doesn't have to be a bitter pill.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion. Anyway, I know culture also overrides all these things. Kuna wazee wanasikia pale Moratini ikikosa kufika. Sijui mbuzi, sijui what. Hawajakupeana.
And I think things are changing every day. I've seen or heard of a recent one where a lady paid her own dowry through the guy.
Madness.
It gets worse. It gets worse. Wakawachana and the guy goes to court claiming for his dowry back.
Oh my goodness. Because he's the one who handed it. So how do you prove you gave it to me?
That's the problem because it was probably given in cash.
Man!
And then you say the law is unfair.
I wish this dowry thing can just be scrapped off. Just give us the blessings. We go.
What's the problem? Is it the dowry giver or the receiver? I don't know.
It's the giver. Of course, the receiver is fine. But now imagine, you can even go and give dowry to a family that is not even well. And now again, if things go haywire, you want to to go and kill. You will kill these parents, Bana.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, anyway,
Yeah.
we leave it at that. It is upon you to decide whether you want the dowry or not. But I hope you have learned, our viewers, I hope you've really learned. This was really, really, something to learn from, because I think family law affects us from properties, from children, from divorce and separation. And we pray that, even siblings actually, we have seen siblings fight over property, and it's not funny. It is not funny. A family that was well united, well knitted, now parents go and they can't see eye to eye because of property. It is very sad. It is very sad. And we are really grateful for the nuggets we have learned. And also, I'd like you to give our viewers your physical address so that in case anyone out there has an issue, family law matters, you know where to go.
Yeah. Okay, so our farm name is Nyakerenga and Company Advocates. We're based in Thika Town, a building called KDO Plaza, 5th floor. Yes, we also have a website. We have Instagram pages, we have a Facebook page, we have a TikTok page, we have a YouTube page, all of them, Nyakerenga Advocates. Just because I have this opportunity, I'll also mention that we have a training that is online, fully online, on mediation and family matters. That's on 19th of December. It will be at 12 noon up to 1 p.m. Sign up, reach out to Phancy. She'll be able to give you further details. My number is 0716 515 002. Reach out to me. We are happy to solve your issues to do with family law. We're happy to mediate any issues you may have. We're happy to empower you so that you go forth with knowledge. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
This was so much fun.
Yeah, we've really also enjoyed and we've really learned. And we do not take it for granted that you just found time to come and educate us. So, our dear viewers, I hope you have learned just like I have done. I hope, in case you have any issue to do with legal matters family, you know who to reach. She has, from what she has explained, I'm sure you can see she's somebody who can be able to help you with a team of experts that she has in her office. And we are really grateful and we are looking forward to learn more and more and to have you here. Kindly also sign up for that webinar. It will be very, very much fun. And of course, you'll get to know and learn in depth about, family law. Until next time, bye-bye. And please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave us a comment, to like and share. Let us, impact the world by knowledge, giving them knowledge. Not everyone will be able to go out there, but through what we share here, we are able to empower you. So, bye-bye. Hey!